Hi everyone, I hope you had an enjoyable Christmas, whatever you ended up doing. We make sure over Christmas that we really try and take some proper time off. We'll do the necessary jobs, so obviously looking after the sheep, the hens, the animals, but as for everything else, unless it needs doing, we try and avoid it. It's definitely a luxury that we have at this time of year that we are a little bit quieter. I know obviously if you're milking or if you have animals inside, all our sheep pretty much are outside, so they're very low maintenance at the moment. So yeah, we're very lucky to be able to take some proper time off. I'm sure some of you will be able to relate though. When I say proper time off, you can't actually keep away from the farm and doing jobs. Obviously when you live here as well, you go outside and you just see things that they need doing, or for example, I took the dog out on a walk on Christmas Day and the sheep had escaped, which is absolutely typical. They love doing things on days where you're trying to take it a bit easy. Just going to open up the hen hut doors. They do have these frames on so that it can get more air, but they're not outside. They've scratted all their shavings into that corner. So it looks really messy in there, but actually they've got loads. It's so deep over there. Here is this absolutely massive cockbird. He's not vicious as yet, but some cockbirds definitely do go like that, and I'm slightly worried about when we let him out if he will be friendly or not. As you can see, these guys have got an empty feeder. There's still a little bit of corn on the floor, so I like them to clean it up out of here so that we don't waste it. So I fill it up most days, most mornings. Those three are all white Sussex, and she is a gold-laced Orpington. That one there though, really strange. Her comb has completely flopped over, and I'm not sure why that is. She's normal in every other way, so it's just her comb is a little bit strange. Obviously, I don't have favourites, of course not, but if I did, it's these guys. So big, so fluffy. They've got plenty of food and water this morning, which is good. I'll probably clean their water though. They scratch stuff into that every day. Plenty of pellets as well. I'm very happy. Obviously, it's quite hard to keep the hens as entertained as they would be if they were completely free range. However, we try our best with bits and bobs in the hut. So one of the things is we give them these, and you can see where they've been pecking at it. It's kind of this weird pumpkin type thing that we accidentally grew in the garden. It's self-seeded, and they go crazy for them, and it's good for them to be doing some kind of normal pecking and scratching. We've had a really busy Christmas in the Airbnb, changeovers on lots of days. We don't have a minimum night stay in the Airbnb, so often people are maybe passing through or staying with relatives, or eating at relatives and they stay for one night. So I'm just in the kitchen now, and one of the things that we do with all of our guests is leave them some scones and some butter and some milk in the fridge as well, so when they arrive, particularly if they've arrived late at night, they can still have a scone and a cup of tea. For those of you who don't know, I started this Airbnb in, I think, August, September, so it's been going a few months now. It's the cottage that my mum and dad lived in when they were first married, and they moved to the farm and then rented it out. Now, I hoped that turning it into an Airbnb would hopefully offer a stronger income potential and basically use it as a farm diversification. We kitted the cottage out so it had absolutely nothing, so I've tried to make it as well equipped as possible. I sometimes find places I've stayed in other Airbnbs, they might be lacking things in the kitchen particularly, so I've tried to make that really full and try and make little touches which will help our guests and make their stay easier. Now, I wish I could be showing you a really nice sunny day and a full garden, but obviously it's not going to look its best over winter, but that's the view out of the kitchen window. Little touches I'm talking about, so for example the dog bowls and dog treats, we do allow dogs to stay, and usually we have absolutely no trouble at all and they're very well behaved. We've got a dishwasher. I insisted that we had to have a dishwasher because I hate doing the washing up when I go on holiday. As I mentioned, we give our guests some scones, so we've got 4 guests staying tonight. And it's just the little touches, so I love these jars for the coffee and the tea. We've got a slight hare theme throughout the cottage, and animals in general, really, farm animals as well. So little touches like that. And as I said, I wanted all of the utensils and also plenty of other kitchen utensils as well. So that is the little kitchen. I think the cottage, I want to say it's about 400 years old, the original bit of it, so it's got really nice beams. It does mean it's a little bit chilly sometimes, but luckily we have a proper open fire to combat that. I just thought I'd show you the main bedroom. So it's a 2-bedroom cottage. We've got a king-size bed in here and we can fit a double bed in the other room. As you can see, I love the little touches like I mentioned in the kitchen. So I have navy face cloths to match these absolutely beautiful kingfisher cushions, which I love, and then the navy bedside tables. I wouldn't say I'm any good at interior design, but I do like the theme running throughout this room. You can see here is one of the old beams. The sitting room and dining room have beams all the way across. And then more little touches, making sure our guests have the cotton wool and cotton pads, just in case they forget their own. So that is a mini tour of a couple of rooms of the Airbnb. I will hopefully do the rest of the rooms in another video to show you all. My job for this afternoon is to get the fold yard ready for the ewes to lamb. Now, usually they would be in this shed here. This is what we call the lambing shed. But as you can see, it is full of peas behind me. This is what peas look like when they are dried. Obviously can be stored here, nothing like fresh peas. Basically waiting for these to be taken away, but they won't be gone in time for lambing. So plan B, as I mentioned, is the fold yard. We found that obviously this is a really good shed for storing things like this, but also it has big doors at both ends. So depending on the weather conditions, we can either get a good breeze blowing through to cool them down if we have kind of unseasonably warm weather, but we can also close up the doors, well, to as big or small a gap as we want if it's really, really cold, and depending on the direction of the wind as well. This is the shed that we are using instead to bring the ewes to lamb in. So it's an old fold yard and would usually have been used for cattle, as you can see with these feed barriers here. The sheep literally won't know the difference between what shed they're in at all, as long as it's dry, sheltered, and they've got food and water. However, there are a few kind of little bits we're just going to change just to make it a bit more sheep friendly. One of the challenges with lambing indoors is obviously you've got sheep with a full wool coat who would be happy to stay outside in pretty much any weather, versus newborn lambs, which obviously can get a chill really easily. One of the main things we make sure is that when the lambs are first born, they're in the most sheltered bit, so they're not getting any cold drafts on them. This corner is going to be the most sheltered. There are some gaps here, but we may well kind of squish those with straw. Now, there isn't actually anything as such to tie these bars to, so I've started the corner of the pen, as opposed to doing one here and here. We'll make it a square to start with and then build up a couple of pens. Now, the peas may be moved before we actually get any lambs, but it's sod's law that if you're not ready with little pens, you'll have more than you can cope with lambing and no pens ready to put them in. We're lambing just over 100, so not thousands by any stretch, but I always say you're still just as tied, because it might be that when you go down there's none lambing, or one maybe soon, or one or two on. We never really go down to the shed and you've got 5, 6, a dozen lambing, but you've still got to go and do these checks. So yeah, just as tied, even if you're not having as many sheep lambing all at once. Having sheep back on the farm of our own is a relatively recent thing in the past few years. We got rid of them a while ago for various reasons, and we've got my sister to blame. She was desperate to get sheep back on the farm, so it's a growing flock and hopefully we'll keep increasing our numbers. Just gathered up a bit of kind of hay and straw, actually from when the cattle were in, which was trapped behind this door. We're starting off with 4 big bales of wheat straw to bed at the shed. We may need more, we'll see how we get on. Wheat straw, we just prefer it for the sheep. It doesn't wrap around their legs and they get on very well with it. As you can see, these 4 bales are an array of my worst attempts this harvest. So I did basically all the baling this year. I think, I can't remember, my dad might have done a little bit, but as you can see, the wrap may have kind of split halfway across, or it just hasn't put enough layers on. Some of it probably was operator error, but sometimes it's inevitable. The wrap just gets caught around the roller and then half of it kind of rips off. So yeah, not my best baling ever, but we'll use these and I think forget they ever happened. As I mentioned, with these bales not being the best ever wrapped, they're not really going to roll out like a proper bale, so I'm going to do my best to get the shed bedded up. Oh, he's just getting silly. Where have you gone? Well, it's really starting to take shape now. I've just got this hay rack to fill up, make sure it's nice and full. All bedded, nearly, featuring Ralph. And then this other hay rack is pretty much full enough. Now the full shed is bedded up, hay rack's full, and we're ready to get the sheep in. Now, with it being the first time that these sheep have ever come into this shed, could be a bit of a challenge to get them in, but as soon as they've been in a few times, they realise they're coming into food and a nice straw bed. They quickly learn the drill and know which way they need to come in. Fresh lick buckets out as well in here for them, so it's going to be a luxury. Oh, hello! What? Getting silly? Look at that tail. Look at that tail. Good boy. These are the ewes to lamb which we will be bringing in. They're definitely all still happy grazing, but it's good for them to be in with the cold conditions on an evening. They've got to come through the gate in the corner of this field, through the next one, and then there's a gate in the corner, and hopefully they'll turn left and head towards the buildings. There's a slight makeshift setup to turn them into the shed, but I'm sure it'll work. Great! Great! Well, my calling has has gathered them to over the brow of the hill, so it saved me a bit of walking. Thank you as always for watching, hoping to get back to a bit more normality next week, normal working hours, normal working days. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you liked it, please do subscribe.